What's up, everybody? Welcome to Vyral Podcast. Today we have the infamous manager Doug. If you are on TikTok or know of any other high-end, high-profile influencers or creators on TikTok, YouTube, those sort of things, Doug probably knows them or manages them or has helped them in one way, shape, or form. Doug has been a big help to a lot of these really big creators, and we are super excited to dig in, get some of his knowledge, some advice from him, from some young creators, medium creators, and even larger creators on what you can do to either be protecting yourself or getting more brand deals. So super excited to get into it. But first, let's get a word from our sponsor, Noble Chairs. So let's get into it, man. So we met, so I guess the first time we met was CES last year, almost a year now.
That's right. Yeah. And it's an honor to be here. First of all, I've seen you guys accelerate in growth since, was it November of last year? I mean, even before CES, I think I made a small connection to a creator. I think it was Fallen Foe or something. And suddenly we're running around in Vegas and you've decided that, we've got to meet up. Maybe we'll meet Carter. Maybe we'll meet some of the creators I rep. And we ran through a sea of people just to meet and had a great time. And learning about your story was incredible. And
cheeseburgers and beer.
What was that? Sorry, I missed that.
Awesome cheeseburgers and beer.
Dude, it was great. The pub was amazing. I went there twice after that. I'll definitely be there.
Back.
Yeah, I'll be there next year too. So, I'm happy to share the love, the wealth, whatever it is that you need to know. I mean, I'm happy to tell, every fact I can come up with in the last 2 years.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, you have quite an experience. Yeah, the experience you have is just, outstanding. So I guess let's get a short little 30-second elevator pitch about who you are, what you do, because it's more than just the content managing or the influencer managing.
Yeah, I am the infamous manager Doug, who does talent management for content creators, but I'm also a California licensed attorney. I happen to also pioneer this specific space of lifestyle tech. When everyone was going the direction of esports, which is an incredible industry, I had to find something that was also in the same area and something that I was passionate about during COVID, knowing that, as a law clerk at that time, there were layoffs. I had to get creative. And it just so happened the first creator I signed was Carter, PCs. He quickly accelerated into becoming probably the biggest lifestyle tech creator in the world, up and coming. And as I was in law school getting ready for the bar, I was also being skyrocketed into tremendous success with a bunch of really, really cool, interesting creators, and ultimately built this, successful company that's got a team under me that I couldn't be more proud of.
So let's give a shout out. What is the name of the company?
So the company is called Rakugo Media. The idea is that you're able to preserve storytelling. So no matter what you do in the tech sphere, no matter what kind of content creator you are, using technology, a microphone, a camera, your goal is to continue your storytelling. And that was always my goal and has always remained that way. And I've been extremely blessed to be where I'm at this point.
Yeah. And you come to a table to these influencers with kind of a very, very unique value proposition of you're an attorney and kind of the brand manager. So you can not only bring the deals or get the deals or find the deals, but also make sure they're legally sound, deals and contracts.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to have exposure to entertainment before everything really digitalized. And I, at that time, thought that technology was going to take over entertainment. I mean, I personally felt that the traditional management approach was archaic and obsolete. And I felt that, and I had learned that lawyers specifically were really effective as talent managers. So if you had this expertise and you had an knack for talent management and could be really efficient in that process, I felt that I could spearhead a new space where, creators could reach out to me when they needed me to, and they would give me, the information I would need to negotiate. And that has, it's been really cool to see how this has really innovated over time.
Yeah, and the way you do it, I mean, it's such a win-win for both the creator and the influencer and the brand, because as from a brand's perspective and doing deals with a lot of your creators, it's a very fluid type of process, and you're either as hands-on as they want you to be, or you're as hands-off as you want them to be. It's kind of you really let them steer the ship, and you'd say, do what you want. This is ultimately your brand, but I'm here if you need me. If you want to negotiate for yourself, you can totally do that also, which I feel is kind of unique, because traditionally when working with some other creators, it's like you got to send everything through the manager, and the creator sometimes doesn't even know what they're being, signed up for, or what the revenue split is. They're just left in the dark, and then they get presented a deal and they just got to, take it or leave it without all this knowledge. But you allow the creator to, and you empower the creator to negotiate the deal on their own behalf.
Yeah. As a content creator, there's a dichotomy between trusting your management and also working effectively with a brand. And I felt that trusting management traditionally meant that you had to give every deal to a talent manager, right? As you mentioned. And the more digital media became a thing, the more I realized that, look, there are opportunities to significantly increase a deal or create a really large long-term partnership that is a nuanced form of negotiation versus a random company in China sending you a microphone, right? There was this huge opportunity for creators to make a lot of money and change their lives. And my personal belief was to always add value to every creator that came along the way. Now, what I've learned from my experience in creating this philosophy is it's very empowering, but you can also give creators so much power where they kind of forget that much of this was built on a trust relationship. But I personally feel that that's the only way like anyone can go, particularly if you're like a talent manager or an attorney, because technology is going to be fixing so much of these small problems, and we're not here to bottleneck that. So I do have that strong philosophy of helping creators to ensure that I'm only adding value, because they could just do it on their phone and be on an app and, piecemeal what they do along the way. When you get big enough and you come from, nothing, and you're like, what do I do? That's where we come in and we put the foundation in place to make sure that you're protected.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have quite the impressive, people that you manage. You got to, rattle off some of them. I know I can name, quite a few, but I'll miss them. But just the pure level and the amount of creators that you kind of represent, and the level of, and the professionalism of the creators you represent kind of, speak a lot about how you, run the business.
Yeah. So if I don't rep them, I have repped them at some point. If I, and then there are people who are on my roster. I mean, Carter is a big one. Maddie K was another. Parker Burton was one. Right now, Andres Vidoza is a really strong candidate that we have that we work with often. Chilrog is a great one. Trying to think who else. I mean, the list just goes on. Danny and Alley, Esports Center. Pretty much every single creator you will see in this specific niche was either managed by me or is being managed by me, and they will still hit me up even after representation, and there will be a way to kind of hash that out. So I feel like if I were to calculate like the total following, it's probably like 35 million people. If I had so it's really crazy to see, and it's just,
these aren't small deals. I mean, when you're working with those type of numbers, I mean, those deals are sometimes one video is probably life-changing amount of money. Some of those deals you negotiate are probably more than your annual salary. the power that the influencer and the creator has these days is just so amazing, and the influence and the amount of money that's out there that brands are willing to give for a review or a shout out or an unboxing or whatever. It's insane.
Well, that's something that's really worth talking about, because I think what I had created and had some insight in was the fact that there was a gap between the value of deals creators got and then the value of deals brands were presenting. And I quickly caught on to the fact that creators were responsible for their platform. They were creating content that people listen to, and brands just were really having a hard time figuring that out. But it wasn't like traditional marketing. So they couldn't hire some, top 5 MBA to be a marketing exec and pay her $250,000 and then contact a creator. And, at the start, for 2 years or for a year, I worked for Carter for free. I was leveraging deals that were like very small and just kind of working my way up over and over and over. And it hit a point where I literally had a target on my back, because suddenly we were taking the budget from large companies and completely telling them that their approach was wrong and they had to follow, the creator. Like, as Mr. Beast was doing his CEC, or the content creator operator, and his businesses and all of that, I was kind of underground, like creating more of a scalable network across a number of creators, so then we could officially raise that standard in the price. And so, much of the time, creators started hitting me up when the deals were with massive brands, and that deal would become life-changing. And that was very much, something that I truly felt fulfilled by. It was like, we've really found something that's truly valuable, and companies that are billions of dollars worth, they're actually listening. So it was a really, those numbers can get really significant. It's pretty wild.
But they don't have to. So what would your advice be? So when should a creator and influencer, at what level or at what size deal, should they be seeking kind of outside advice or counsel?
Yeah. So a content creator should usually seek advice when they are making, give or take, $20,000 within a 3-month period. I think that's a reasonable time to start considering that you need management. That's like from a hard number standpoint. Now, that's one way to go. The other way is simply, are you inundated by brand deals? Is this something that you have no time to put into because you are trying to make content? Much of what this new form of talent management does is be the operator behind your content creation. So, camera, mic, whatever your setting is, that is your job. Our job is everything else. So if you start to lose your touch, you start to lose your quality of content, and you're seeing that there's a lot of potential with brand deals, live appearances, overall, media deals, that's when you want to seek some form of legal counsel or talent management.
What are some of the kind of the legal, repercussions or some significant legal challenges that some creators, could get themselves into if they don't seek the legal counsel?
Yeah. So legal ramifications are really interesting in the space, because the content itself is so rapid, where it's almost like ripping a Band-Aid repeatedly. You're going through a deal, boom, it's done, it's live, you're paid. So the way we approach at least the legal protections, obviously there's more, boring stuff, indemnification, which means, being able to protect yourself in the event of a lawsuit. But the real ones for creators, you need to know usage, exclusivity, and IP licensing rights. So the biggest problems arise when a creator feels desperate, or they're misinformed or uninformed, and they sign a contract that tells you that by doing this brand deal, your IP, your video, is the brand's ownership for perpetuity or in perpetuity. Or they have the right to throw this around the world, fully licensed, global, paid usage for and in perpetuity. That means forever, plain and simple. Perpetuity is just like the word you really want to be careful about. And outside of that, maybe this can be like a kind of a second question, but
Yeah.
Exclusivity is I was fighting it really early on. I thought exclusivity was fairly archaic when it comes to brand deals, because videos are so fast and rapid. Why is 30 seconds going to affect the next 2 weeks of your life making a post? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But being able to protect yourself from significant exclusivity rights is a pretty massive thing you need to stay away from.
Because you could accidentally kind of, limit the deals that you get based off of one deal. You could, potentially miss out on tens or even hundreds of other deals because of that exclusivity.
Yeah, exclusivity is it's almost political in a certain way. So obviously, if you violate exclusivity rights, you're going to upset, in-house counsel, the brand itself. You're gonna pay a price. That's a lot of negotiating, and it would never. I don't. I'm not going to say this as legal advice, but like you would never end up in court over something like this, but you would have a demand letter or some kind of battle internally that you'd have to handle. But ultimately, if you are working with a brand that wants exclusivity, you're also swearing to their allegiance. You're basically saying, I work with you and I believe in what you're doing and I want you to continue supporting me moving forward. So there's this bit of a battle you have to face when it comes to brand exclusivity.
Right. Yeah. Especially, kind of like what FTX did, and all the influencers and celebrities that got caught up in the FTX, endorsing a brand or something that, ultimately ended up costing people a lot of money.
That's one thing I didn't mention. When you're doing a brand deal, FTC regulations are super, super important for content creators, which every deal is going to have this. It's this long boilerplate standard document that says you need to be like super, super clear about advertising this specific product. And you have to also voice that you were paid in some capacity by this specific company. And what people don't realize is I think regulations might have changed this year, but for the last 2 years, you actually didn't need #ad. It wasn't necessary. But what you did need was a message that convinced the viewer that they were using the product because they were paid. And if you don't do that, that can lead to significant fines. I've never seen that personally from TikTok, but I also have a pretty strong grip on that aspect, and so do tech companies. They will press you until you have that in your messaging.
Yeah, which it's kind of a double-edged sword because the old wives' tale is that if you do that #ad or whatever, it does suppress the views and the organic reach that some videos have. So it's like do I follow the law and potentially suppress the views and then and have it be a bad look on the creator because they promised or they're used to X amount of views and then they put #ad and they get half the views and the brand's upset. Like, well, normally you get 100,000 views per video. Why would I only get 50 on mine? And then that, or you kind of risk it legally and don't put the ad thing in there, and then you could be left with a couple $1,000 fine.
Yeah, and there's a whole other battle to this. So something that I had done very early on too was really fight companies about creative integrity. That was absolutely essential to my start. And there were times where I would find really solid success telling a company that they need to they need to stop putting in this crappy messaging and just listen to the creator and let them do their thing. And over time, there was one time I was working with a creator where the brand insisted that the video include 16 specs to a laptop. And I was going back and forth between the brand and the creator over and over and over. And I said, hey man, listen, you just got to include just a couple specs. He goes, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I said, okay. I'll talk to the brand. It's a big brand. It's a huge brand, $1 billion brand. I'll talk to the brand. I'm going to tell them that this guy knows what he's talking about. And if he doesn't, or excuse me, and if he does this, I'll be on the hook if it fails. Done. I get this email very quickly after talking to the brand that says, it better perform. So I'm like, oh my God. I have this like Fortune 500 company, like they're about to like ruin my career. And that video got 2 million views in like 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
So the reason why I bring this up is because stories like that should convince brands to let creators be more fluid and artistic about what they do, because they really know their audience, like better than anyone, even better than the person selling the product to the audience, like even if they're the ideal, profile. Yeah. And so when you're dealing with FTC regulations, there is a really fine line, right? Like you can get fined, you can be creative, you can put in hashtag ad and ruin your viewership. What are you going to pick? You could do bracket ads, like there are all these different things you can do to show that it's an advertisement, but the ability that a creator has shouldn't be suffocated as a result.
Right. Yeah. It's from a brand's perspective, it is kind of scary to put all the creative control. But at the same time, that's ultimately why a brand is hiring the creator, because of the content that they're used to making. So that's where anytime we ever do a brand deal, we literally, or even not even just brand deals, but anytime we work with artists, because we, customize all the computers and we make them really cool. And sometimes we collaborate with different artists. And it's like literally you have full 100% creative control. Because once you start to kind of put people in a box, especially creative in a box, it kind of limits that creativity and then kind of turns them off to do the whole project. And then it's not fun. And then, what's the point of it if it's not fun?
So much of being a creator too is developing the skill set to deal with really good brands and really bad brands, and figuring out how to create a consistent system that will work no matter what, given the circumstances. Because technology and short form content has grown so rapidly to the point where you can't even catch up to what the standard is. So a lot of what I'm trying to develop in the future, like in January, we're trying to develop a few programs that teach creators and agencies and brands alike how to have a formal approach to working with creators that not only reduces costs and causes headaches, but also to just build the proper relationships. Like I think you guys at Vyral do a really great job, because so much of what we encounter is a relationship that's just built on a contract. And if brands were more conscious to that, and they realized that, oh, if we built a relationship with them, we invited them to events, we brought them on the, like to our headquarters, like we could, you would get a lot of value from that. And so if you have that creator that can train themselves to make the right content at the right time and then build the right relationships, sky's the limit. Anything can really happen. So it's a weird time, and I hope it changes like soon when brands wake up to this. But I've always got a business as a result.
Yep. You lead the charge and, kind of help do that. What type of advice would you have for creators of any size on how to get more brand deals? Because from our perspective, I think a lot of the brand deals are, I won't say drying up, but they are becoming a little bit harder with a little bit of constricting on the economy. A lot of marketing budgets are kind of getting drawn up. So what is something that a creator can do to be more appealing to some brands?
So there's a bit of a process when trying to get brand deals as a creator. Don't be upset if you're not getting a deal in a week because you got one video that performed really well. The main thing that brands want to see is someone who's consistent, someone who's easy to work with, and someone who is following guidance but also has creative input at the right time. So if you're making content that's really authentic and it's growing in viewership, you want to find a way to isolate and identify the strongest content you have with the most engagement. And then you want to think about how you can combine that authenticity, that lifestyle focus into a brand deal? How can it be so seamless that a brand is watching this and they just viscerally respond to it and they go, I could literally just slide earbuds into this brand deal and no one would know, even if it said hashtag ad under it, and it would still be enough to meet the materiality standard for the FTC for ad compliance. And I think the more you practice that and you believe that it's going to happen, I promise you it does. And it's very interesting to see when one comes in because 6 more will follow. There's very much a cyclical pattern that comes to it too. So like a second thing is when you're developing and you're getting a deal, be really attentive about the market cycle. Like, is this an end of a financial quarter? You know, you could be 15 if you're listening to this as a creator. So like quarters, there are 4 quarters every year financially. You close your books as a business each quarter. Seems like brand deals come in ever so slightly before the quarter ends, which means if you build the relationships and can get a hold of these guys just before that, knowing of what's coming, you could be getting more brand deals on top of what you're making because of your authenticity and because of your consistent work as a content creator.
Yeah. So do you recommend them going to any of these, marketplaces to find some of the deals, the brand marketplaces?
So the brand marketplaces are super interesting because I think my business had actually experienced the opposite effect as a talent manager with creators, which is it's sort of it's saturated. There are just too many brands. How do you actually serve individual brands effectively? And how do you do that without completely standardizing the process and pissing off a creator along the way? Like, there are some deals that are really great if you're in a marketplace, and why not? Like, it helps, just diversify to find opportunities. But so many of those marketplaces are not paying attention the way that they should. So it's very much, red tape, and nobody is there to actually take care of the deal itself. So if you're trying to make a fast buck and you want to do marketplace and you want to grow your portfolio, yeah, that's fine. And I think that if you're really serious about this and you want to look professional to other brands, then you want to have a couple under your belt as you're growing. So outside of that, that can be pretty treacherous.
Yeah. I mean, I think we have some creators that come to us and, ask, how can we work with you? And then, look at their profile. They don't have any type of brand deals or not even deals, just any type of, content to look back on to judge what they want to do. They might have great gaming content or something, but then they want to get into the lifestyle tech of the reviews or the unboxings, but it's really hard to see how they're going to perform. So we always just recommend, like, choose something that you already love, that you don't mind endorsing just for free and endorsing, and kind of get those reps in and practice with stuff that you have just laying around the house.
Absolutely. Especially when you're a gaming creator trying to tap into lifestyle tech. I've been seeing that more lately. I think obviously there's a bit of a reformation for gaming companies. 100 Thieves, FaZe Clan. There's a shift. Like, a lot of what used to be seemingly the profitable lion's share of a company actually wasn't the case, and it was just heavy investment. So a lot of these creators are like, well, what do I do now? Because I thought, having my microphone on my stream was the best way to go and would get the best concurrent viewership possible. Well, I got to talk about tech now. I got to get my laptop. I got to get my build. I got to go sell this. And so, if you're able to practice and just know that you're going to continue to grow, if you're getting some traction, it's going to make everybody's life easier, because you can't just be some random guy who films something on a camera and then is reaching out asking for $500 for a PC. Like, it's just not going to work.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, how would you suggest creators, look for those brand deals during the holiday season? because obviously the holidays coming up, there's every single brand wants to have some videos made, some UGC made, that user generated content. And so how do you suggest getting some of those deals?
I would be self-interested.
Drawing and boxing.
Yeah, I would be self-interested if I said, hit me up. I think asking other creators and talking to them about what's coming down the line is really important. And one of the really crazy things that came from COVID was the network effect across creators. It has really powerful elements to it, but it also has really frightening aspects to it because it's extremely sensitive to things that can go wrong. So like if you were reaching out to a creator and you want to make a deal, right? Or you're if you're working with a creator or talking to a creator and you want to get the deal that they got, it's super possible that the brand just leaves that creator and goes to you. And if that happens, you can quickly lose everything, right? Like then you don't really get the network of creators who know the brands that are working at the right time. So honestly, I would say hiring really just talking to like somebody who's got their finger on the pulse. It could be management, it could be creators, it could be a brand. That's a really good place to start, and getting on a list. So one of the hard parts about this space, and that's something that I've worked really hard in trying to reinvent, is giving true advocacy and representation for content creators. Brands just want to throw you on a list and they want to reach out, and then they want you to respond and they want you to get the job done. That's the rate. Just don't question it. So you kind of have to be on these lists that exist. But over time, if you're on a list and you're working with a specific brand, word gets around after the fact. So I know that was like a complex answer, but creators, managers, marketing associates, get on an influencer list.
Yeah. And would you suggest kind of these influencers going to all of the expos and conferences and everything that they can and just kind of doing that face-to-face networking with the brands that maybe bypass the list?
Yeah, it's funny that in this era, when it comes to content creation, we have to say like meeting somebody in person is really important. Like if you want to network, you need to go to an event and you need to meet them. And I'm also to blame because I sometimes don't go to events. To be honest, I get a lot of people asking for me when I'm at the event, and now it's hit a point where I don't want that because it actually defeats the purpose of networking. It puts all these people together, but it's all identifying one little solution that everybody wants at the same time. So anyway, I digress. That's a separate problem. But yeah, if you're a content creator, you want to go to the different expos and events. I mean, go to the booths, talk to the specific marketing lead that's sitting at the front, talk to them, get to know them, get their contact info, reach out afterwards. Odds are there'll be a opportunity like weeks after.
Yeah. So I've seen a lot of creators kind of use that method, and it's there's so many opportunities. There's so many conferences to go to. You could go to a new one every single month, and there's so many different brands there. And if you just people like working with people, which is why we really put an emphasis on meeting creators, actually building a relationship with them, because we want to like who we're working with. We want, whoever's endorsing our product, not just to endorse it because, we gave them some money or we gave them some free product. We really want our product to be fun to endorse. You're endorsing it because you like the people behind the brand and you like the product. And the only way to really know all of those, answer or understand all of those is by going to the events and meeting the brands in person or the creators in person. On a brand from my side, I don't know too many creators that I've worked with that I haven't met in person. I think it's really important to, at those events, I walk around, see someone vlogging, what's your channel? What do you do? Or if you see someone you recognize going up, introducing yourself. And it's not always about trying to find deals. Sometimes it's just, the networking piece. Like maybe they know somebody else, or maybe they work with a brand that you want to work with, or whatever. So yeah, I think a lot of creators underutilize the network of either friends and brands that they already have.
they could find a lot more deals by either asking their fellow, influencers, hey, I've seen you work with that brand. Can you give me the info? Or vice versa, on the brand side. So, yeah,
it's crazy how content creators have also become salesmen, marketers, entrepreneurs, operators, and actors and actresses. Like it's a really crazy thing. And I feel like the one thing that always stops creators, at least from what I had seen previously, what stops them from going to networking events is the fact that they're just so busy. And that's something to consider too. So if you're at an expo or at a live event, you need a team behind you to produce the content while you're there. Like if you're working towards trying to get deals that are in that type of setting, and you're also trying to work towards building that relationship with other people really underestimate the power of hiring and making sure that you can save your time and buy back your time. And that's such an important thing for content.
I see a lot of creators do that as well, kind of like being business owners. They get so busy working in the business and not on the business. So, you're stepping over pennies, or you're stepping over dollars to get pennies. You're trying to save the money and do everything yourself. And I don't need a manager. I'll negotiate, and I don't need an editor. I'll do all the editing, and I don't need anybody. I can do all of it, and I'm saving so much money by doing it all myself mentality. But on the other hand, if you freed up some time to maybe go, if you weren't editing a video and you freed up 2 hours a day, sending or phone calling, 20 other brands a day, by freeing up that time, or networking for 2 hours or what have you.
How many creators have you come across who grew exponentially or had some sudden success and had no idea what they were doing, but still entered a deal anyway?
A lot.
Yeah. And what is that? What do you think that is?
Just kind of the excitement of it, like, oh, I finally made it. Like, I'm doing it. Like, this is my dream. I'm doing the damn thing pretty much. So, it's kind of jump in both feet first, and, no regard for either legal counsel or the repercussions of the brand, or endorsing something you don't truly believe in, and then losing the trust of, their followers, or other brands. So, but the excitement, understandably, is, probably, really appealing, and you finally get that opportunity, and you finally, hit a viral video and get a couple 100,000 views, and then you have brands knocking at your door the very next day, and a lot of times, and either they get taken advantage of by the brand, because the brand paying them not what they're worth, or they just endorse stuff that they don't want to endorse because the paycheck, and then, slippery slope there.
Yeah. It feels like I've had so many interactions. I feel like let me think, how many creators have I either like consulted or just like talked to in the last 2 years? Like, I'd probably say 150. And the most common mistake is, oh my God, I made a ton of money. The deal was great. It's going to happen in 3 months from now. It's so much money. And I think there was something about perpetuity. What does that mean? And you're like, dude, you could have paid, let's say you made $20,000. You could have paid $2,000 to like get the entire thing taken care of. And you would have done 6 more deals if you just found one person to either do an hourly rate or contingency, and you didn't. You just jumped in. But the other thing that makes me really, really pissed is that a brand also reaches out to this guy, and they're like, he should probably seek a lawyer, or he should probably seek some sort of advice. Nah, let's just get him to sign it today because the activation is tomorrow, and they sign the contract. It's not until 3 months out. And then after 3 months hit, they are paid 3 months after that. So if you add that up, they're really making $200 a day, and their whole life was wasted. So it's such a shame. Like, I don't know how to describe this, but the pride, I think, that creators have, and they rightfully should. They did so much to get to where they are, and they built their audience. But, just because I'm a lawyer and I passed the bar doesn't mean I'm an amazing neurosurgeon. Like, these are two different things. And at some point, my goal too, like, is to streamline this process, like to be able to make this more accessible and can immediately attach to a creator when this happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Because I mean, they get thrown into they're creative and creator, and then they get turned into business owner really quick. And I used to work in the restaurant industry doing some small business consulting, and I would see it all the time. People open restaurants because they have a good chili recipe. Like, I make the best chili, I'm gonna open a restaurant. But there's 99 other things that you have to do to run a successful restaurant than have a good chili recipe.
yes.
And same thing with content creating. It's more than just creating the content. You can be a great content creator, but not a good business manager or finance manager or lawyer, or marketer or networker. So you got to wear so many hats all at once. I'd definitely seek out some advice, and don't let it impact your pride that you are reaching out for help.
That's right. And content creation too is in such a like early stage, because we call it influencer. I'm like adamant about calling it creator, content creator, because it's such a different beast. Like it is a company behind itself. And the one thing that's so crazy is that so is my business. Like my business is like more innovative than I realized. And it's innovative because we cut out much of that traditional influencer management stuff where it's, we take everything, we, we're going to only take high level deals. We're not going to build a relationship with you. You're going to be one and done. But as a result, it kind of just feels like we're at the beginning of the internet. It's just, there's all this stuff that's happening, and nothing is illegal and nothing is legal. It's just, it just is. It's the Wild West. So
Tripping. It's
say it again. I didn't hear that.
It's like crypto used to be.
Yeah, it's totally that space. And now I think for companies in general in this space, the competition is just getting more aggressive by day because it's so innovative, because the space is so novel. You're eliminating traditional production companies. You're eliminating brand strategy. You're eliminating, marketing strategies that were for 5 years, like from a Toyota, right?
Yeah.
And so people they're not, I won't say they're losing their jobs, but they're certainly not in the scope and skill set that they previously had. So I think more than ever, there are people who are just jumping in without any understanding of this space. And I think we're kind of on the verge of things solidifying as a result, just because there's just so much money in it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at what point, going back to the business kind of mentality, at what point do you suggest a creator really considering themselves a business and a brand and actually doing the incorporating and going to LLC and doing all the business paperwork?
Yeah, sure. So it's it's an accounting and it's a legal question. I'm not I'm a CPA, none of that. Just got to say that. I am a lawyer, but this isn't legal advice either. So when you have an entity, it's about having legal protection. That's really the main thing. If you do something wrong as a content creator and you piss off a brand and it costs that brand money, that is what we call damages. If you cause damages, you don't want to individually be liable, meaning you don't want a brand or an agency to sue you because you didn't have anything to protect you and they're going to take your money specifically. You instead want this omniscient entity called an LLC or a corporation that is its own legal body, its own legal entity that takes the liability that you would have taken individually. So they can only go after funds that you have made in that specific entity. Now, the problem is you have to be careful about certain aspects where you're commingling funds. You don't want to mix money, like personal expenses. Don't buy Pizza Hut for your friends, through your LLC while you're playing Fortnite, like questionably a write-off, but
once you're making content. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But you want to consider an LLC when you feel that you're working with companies that could be damaged by the messaging that you have. There are many contracts that also, this is something that drives me nuts because this is such a new space. It's not influencer, it's content creator. There are agencies and brands that feel that they should have no responsibility over the messaging that they give a creator. So like they write a message about how great a product is.
Mm-hmm.
So an agency writes a message about how great the product is, and in the contract it will say, we are not liable for anything that you say after we approve the content. So keep that in mind, because if you're getting a big deal, that is probably when you should get an LLC, because if something goes wrong, you are on the hook. And another thing, I hate to bash on agencies because there's some good ones. Agencies have fully, if they're smart about it, they've cut off their liability at all costs against the brand. Anything that's happening is going directly to you, or they can go after you for what happened. And in that, you could get yourself in serious trouble, even though an agency might cluelessly tell you to do something and didn't think about it. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah. So from my perspective, I guess it would be earlier the better. As soon as you can. It's really cheap to do, right? I mean, to set up an LLC, it's probably like $99 for your state to register it, and maybe $99 for something else, to register the name or the trademark or whatever. But outside of that, it's super inexpensive. And then same thing on the accounting front. You don't necessarily need an accountant right off the bat. You can do your own self research and save yourself the money and figure out what is, if you can write that piece off, or if you can't. Or you can find a really cheap small business attorney or a small business CPA, and just work on a question basis, or a lot of will probably even do it for free. Or I'm sure you have an aunt or an uncle or someone that has a business and they have a CPA and they can answer questions by them. But yeah, I guess from my perspective, earlier the better on the LLC side, because it's really just that shield. I mean, think of it as like a video game, and you're picking up a shield. Like that shield can take some damage for you, and then you throw it down, and you're protected.
Yeah, there's certain aspects to the LLC too that get a little bit more complicated, because it's something that you have to use once you're making revenue. That's kind of like the real thing. Yeah. If you're in a position where the LLC hasn't really made a profit, then you do something, then it happens, it can be a little bit more problematic. So it gets a little bit more nuanced, but you're right. Like you want to get it sooner than later. Your first year generally as a entity, I think you get to waive any costs. At least you do in California. And the only hard part is there's some states that are very expensive. So California is an $800 annuity fee. Not fun. Not a good time. New York might be the same, but if you got that far, I mean, that's really the most important thing. You did it. Just protect yourself a little bit and move forward.
Yeah. And what's some ways, so if they are considering legal counsel, what's some ways that legal counsel typically charges? Do they do like a retainer for the year? Is it as a as needed basis? What are some of the different ways that they should be charged?
Yeah, sure. So attorneys, it varies by state overall, generally, but there are some fairly standard approaches. So you can be paying a lawyer a flat fee, a contingency, or a retainer. So in this situation, though, as a content creator, you're not coming in asking for 24/7 legal counsel. So being able to pay a lawyer kind of on a one-off basis is probably the best way to go. Now, that's really tricky, especially as someone who's getting their start, because lawyers typically want a lot of money in the bank before they start working for you. And that's what the retainer model is. It's, hey, pay us $10K. We'll do the work, but we'll invoice you every month and tell you what we did. Then you can challenge it if you want. And, once it runs out, you can pay us again. So getting that flat rate and saying like, hey, can you just do me a favor? And like, I'll pay you $300 to just do this kind of contract. That's probably the best route if you're able to do it.
Yeah.
Then there's a contingency fee. So that's what's difficult too in a content creator space. You're almost a startup and you're working with legal counsel, and legal counsel is expecting to be a transactional lawyer for you in the event of things happening. So sometimes they can say, hey, I want 5% on every deal you do because I'll be negotiating and redlining it. But they don't have an understanding of the brand deal, the negotiating, the marketing, the production, the back-end accounts receivable. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. So you have to be really careful, honestly. I mean, even when I was not a lawyer, it was frightening. I mean, you could lose a lot of money.
Yeah, and it's hard to probably pick one also because the space, like you mentioned a lot, it is in its infancy, and not a lot of lawyers are used to working with this this model. This, I'm an influencer, I'm a person. This brand wants to pay me 20 grand, protect me. I mean, it's like there's generalities, of course, and there's legal stuff that is kind of black and white across the board, but there all are some nuances. Like using that video in perpetuity, like some lawyers might not understand the repercussions of that from an influencer perspective, because they're used to doing it with other people, and perpetuity is commonplace in some other verticals.
There's a really good lawyer. So I went to Loyola Law School in California, in LA, and her name's Tyler Chou, Chou, and she's sort of like the creator for lawyers. And outside of her, I really haven't seen that many people who do specifically this, because it's so intricate, it's so fast, and it's so systematic, where you have to spend 5 or 6 months understanding how the order of operation works. Like what happens when a contract comes in? A contract is like this much of the deal, and you got to get to here, and suddenly you realize, wow, the contract is such a small blip. What matters is coordination, getting the content done on time, making sure my equipment's up to par, messaging's correct, FTC guidelines, and then juggling with other deals. So it's hard to find an attorney who kind of knows this space.
So what's the best way to find one? You reach out to you and then help them. I mean, is there websites? Is there a certain type of lawyer that they could start with by throwing in Google?
I would say, honestly, I would probably reach out to rakugomedia.com just to fill out a form and tell us what you're experiencing, because we're in no position to try to take something from you for no reason. Like, my reputation has been fully built on adding value at all costs. And, one of the things that we've done that's really innovative is really streamline a process that has taken a significant amount of time traditionally. So that means we have more access to the different aspects of a deal. And if we have more aspects of a deal under our scope, we can either direct you to the right person, or we can handle it ourselves and help you out. And that's something that we're encountering too. We have brands who are hitting us up, wanting in-house counsel services, but we're like, well, hang on. We're also a management company, and we also have a production company, and we're doing all of that at the same time. How do we do this? Like, how do we not violate any ethical duty as an attorney? So honestly, I would say, check out our website and fill out our form, and, we'll respond to you very quickly and just get a better understanding of what you need.
Yeah, spell it for everybody real quick for anyone listening.
Rakugo Media, RAKUGO Media.
Right. And then any other tools or resources that you want to point some creators to, just as a final bit of nugget? I
would say, honestly, if you're a content creator and you're looking for resources, it's going to sound ridiculous, and I have no affiliation to this website, Coursera. Go check out an intro accounting course. Like, go check out, basics to running a business operationally, and honestly, automating. If you can find ways to automate much of what you're dealing with behind the scenes, you're going to be handling a lot of the battle. Love that. When we try to do the same thing in our business. So, yeah, sound advice. Well, cool. Manager Doug, you're a legend. I'm sure this, it's such a small industry.
if you burn one bridge, you burn them all. And you've been doing it for a very long time. You haven't burned any, and you're still, the man on the man on TikTok. So definitely everyone go check out Doug on TikTok. He does his own little bit of content over there as well. You were doing it pretty strong for a while, and then I don't know. Are you still?
Fun story. I don't know how much time you have. Maybe we'll do another podcast. This was really fun. You're an excellent host, by the way, Chris. You're killing it.
Thank you.
And so I started making content telling people what to do and how to approach their deals. And I was attacked by large brands because they felt threatened. And I was trying to democratize negotiating as a content creator, and they started splitting my clients. And they started and that's what I kind of my point about people being competitive. But it's, I was just a kid on my laptop that built this business and advocated for creators. And then I'm dealing with like Microsoft and Intel and, Apple and everybody under the sun, fighting them alone. And now I've got a team. So, we just keep on the good fight, and I'll make more content soon.
Awesome. Love it. Well, all righty. We'll see you on the next episode. And that's it for Vyral Podcast.
Beautiful. Thanks for having me on.